Welcome to Screen Quest, a podcast where a fellowship of film lovers and armchair movie experts plays film roulette. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Waterman from Jacksonville, joined as always by May Finch, also from Jacksonville.
Hello, hello.
Now, for our visual enjoyers of the podcast, you may notice that May is quite still right now, stone still, almost as if she's merely a photograph. So May, I will let you give a brief explanation for that.
So I'm actually on location. I am at the apartment complex where we've got this unusual breakout. No, I got celiac and I got gluten, which is my way of saying I got food poisoning from eating bread. So yeah, I'm sick as a dog and I look it. So I will be appearing in voice only today.
Well, we certainly appreciate it, and we're very sorry about the glutening, as it were. That's unfortunate, but we're happy to have you here.
Happy to have a distraction.
And of course, last but not least, we have Will Rotondi from Greenville, South Carolina.
Hello.
All right. It is it's a slightly different recording day and time for us here. We're actually doing this on a Thursday evening, a rainy Thursday evening here in Jacksonville, where I'm at anyway. I not really, like, I would say even an hour ago, just got finished watching our film of the show, which is Wreck, found footage horror film. So we'll be doing a bullet time a little bit later, talking about the final stretch, the finale of that film, which, as a reminder, was one of Will's nominations. We'll also be drawing a side quest as always. But first, hot off the press, we have a new trailer launching out of Comic-Con for Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, starring Michelle Rodriguez, Chris Pine. Who else is in the cast? Somebody help me out here. I should have pulled that up, but I didn't.
We have Regé Jean Page, who is of Bridgerton fame, who's going to be playing a fighter in the new movie. Justice Smith, who's playing a powerful mage, and a shape-changing druid played by Sophia Lillis. Very excited for this cast list, especially since Chris Pine will be playing a bard, a la his performance in Into the Woods. So stoked.
Did I see a Hugh Grant in the trailer as well? I think I spotted a Hugh Grant.
He did show up.
Yeah.
I think he is the antagonist, or at least one of them.
Excellent. So let's go quickly just around the room and give some general, like, 30-second impressions. What'd you make of the trailer?
So I brought this up because I'm very excited. I am a dungeon master for D&D currently. Chris is actually in my group. And love the game. I've not seen any of the other D&D movies. I know this is not the first one, and I know all the other ones have been kind of terrible. So my expectations are, I guess, a little lowered by that. But it does look fun. I don't think it's going to take itself too seriously. And, like, I don't know. I feel like it just like I need a fun, nerdy movie, and this looks like it will fulfill that. So I'm excited personally. Also, the production value looks quite high from the trailer. There's going to be at least one gelatinous cube and one owl bear. So what more could you want?
And a fucking mimic too. Like, let's not forget about that terrifying thing that I first learned about from Dark Souls.
Y'all be lucky you haven't had a mimic in my campaign yet.
Oh, trust me, every fucking chest. I'm not the one who's gonna ever open that shit. I can tell you that. I'm scarred for life from software games. So yeah. Well, what did you think?
Truthfully, when I saw who was in it, and I watched maybe about 10 seconds of it, I thought there's no way it can be worse than the last one that they tried to make. So I feel optimistic. I feel like the cast alone, I have faith in the people that are in it enough to feel like it would carry with characters that I would care about, versus the hot mess that I saw back in 2000 with the last incarnation of a D&D film that I feel like wasn't in any way, shape, or form really related to D&D. Although it's been a long time and I hated it so much that I really don't feel like going back and fact checking that. So maybe it was, they just did a really bad job with the source material then, but I hope it's better this time around.
Awesome. Yeah. I am very cautiously optimistic, but emphasis on the optimistic. Just from that trailer, which I think is like more of a tone piece than really getting a sense of like what the story is going to be. I love the party dynamic, like just like they really like nailed that kind of feeling of goofing off and fucking up and like, you know, maybe doing the wrong thing for the right reasons and then trying to fix it. Like all that is like right there in the trailer. I love the banter. I play a bard in this current campaign, so I was very excited to see that Chris Pine
You'll
is
be
a
taking
bard.
notes.
No. Let's I'll give notes. Thank you very much. But no, like I mean, I think like from if I had to go off of just the trailer, this seems like worst case scenario. Have a couple pints like before you go to the movies, and it'll be a great time. Like I don't see how this movie is not at least fun, even if it's
Mhm.
not like, you know, highbrow cinema. Like who fucking cares? Like, so that's my take. Awesome. All right. Well, let's have a side quest, shall we? Give these a old shuffle here. Shuffle.
Table flip. Table flip.
I may or may not have forgotten to have or like to save the state. So I had to go digging through that card again for continuity for your
Oh,
pick for
no.
rec. In any event, for our side quest this week, it is, and I'd like to thank. So one of us will get to choose a film that is influential in some way, shape, or form in your life. It could be your journey as like a film lover. It could just be a movie that means a lot to you, that had some sort of influence. So I once again, if somebody has a strong opinion on one of these, like I'll open up the floor. I have one if you guys don't, but I'll give you an opportunity first if somebody has one.
So
I
I've got-
do.
Yeah, I
Oh.
was gonna say, yeah, go for it. Because I
You
was
sure?
gonna say, since I went last week, I've got one
Yeah, go
too,
for it, man.
but at the same time, I definitely think that somebody else should take a turn. So yeah, all you, mate.
Cool. I will go just because I feel like with rec, I'm still processing it. I don't know if I have anything useful to say. I have questions mostly. So for this one, yeah, I would have to say this feels like a somewhat like basic answer, but I think like one of the first like sort of like indie films that like really like kind of was unique in a way that I thought was really powerful was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. As someone who like really loves sci-fi, but kind of like the more I guess like stereotypical like Battlestar Galactica, Star Trek, Stargate kind of stuff. It was the first time I saw like the use of a like cool sci-fi device in what is like a quirky, offbeat, and like at times very sweet rom-com. And I just loved that combination. And it's definitely a film that like I thought like said a interesting, thought-provoking thing about relationships, and I don't know, kind of left me with a similar feeling to Everything Everywhere All at Once when I like finished the film. And I feel like most people can relate at least to in some part to Eternal Sunshine. And like the way it does kind of contextualize like the highs and lows of a relationship and just the process of once a relationship is ended, like going through those quite literally in the context of the film. But yeah, how you deal with that after and how that shapes what you then want out of future relationships. So yeah, no, it's a film that's very dear to my heart, and I also saw it when I was in that kind of like early stage of, you know, going through my first serious relationships, and yeah, it just meant a lot to me. Have you guys seen it?
Many times. It's one of my
Yeah.
all-time favorite films as well. Also a gateway into the world of indie films. That and Lost in Translation are probably like the two, like right around the same time. I think I saw those and had a profound effect, like, equally for different reasons. But you said you've seen it as well, Will?
Oh yeah, no, it's been a while too. I've seen it probably, I want to say about 2 or 3 times. Watched it, I think, a couple of times when it first came out, and I've definitely gone back to watch it again since. And yeah, I think it says a lot about in terms of the connections that we make and sort of the need to go through certain things in order to learn from it and move forward. And also, I thought it was just visually a very beautiful film. So
Yeah, I especially love the message that like you shouldn't run away from your pain. You're right.
mhm.
Like even though pain is unpleasant, like it's something that you should kind of hold on to and clutch it. And like even a failed relationship, like there's precious memories that like, at least that's what I kind of like, a big part of what I took from it was that you know, um there's value in holding on to that and processing it and dealing with it. And I think May, you hit the nail on the head, like learning from it, right? There's a lesson to be learned,
Yeah.
even in failed relationships.
I also like how like you can see like how running away from and not really like I guess kind of like dealing with your baggage can be used against you with with Frodo's character.
Yeah.
How he, like
Ugh.
literally uses the trauma of her past relationships to kind of like wheedle his way into a really really icky relationship with her.
Yes,
Um,
such a creep.
yeah, but like you can also take that metaphorically as like, yeah, you're gonna keep making the same mistakes in your relationships unless you like really kind of like sit with what went wrong in your last one.
I think that's a great pick. I like
Thank you.
that. It's amazing. Sunray Cinema, our little local theater here in Jacksonville. I won't say every year, but I know frequently it's been done several times since I've moved here. That is their Valentine's Day film, or like one of two usually that they'll show. I think Casablanca is pretty common.
Yeah.
So we saw that at the drive-in when they had their little pop-up drive-in during COVID, and it was great.
Nice.
We had a good little cry in the
Aw.
in the car. Probably half due to COVID and half due to that, honestly. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, May. I think, wonderful pick there.
Definitely.
All right. Well, let's pivot to some. I mean, we call these zombies. I mean, I know like that's kind of like widely accepted, but some creatures, some infected people in a building. Let's swap over to that. We'll say and talk about Wreck.
It's a good way to pivot from talking about dealing with your pain to running away from your pain in a different way. So Wreck is I guess on the outside, Wreck looks like a very traditional zombie flick, and some parts of it are in a lot of ways, and then it kind of deviates and does its own thing, especially toward the end when you sort of find out what's supposed to, or I guess what supposedly started everything. But I guess to sort of backtrack for a little bit and just give some context for our listeners, that Wreck starts out with a couple of reporters who are out doing they're doing a special for their local TV news about what life is like for firefighters in their area on the night shift. And so they come and they tag along with some guys over at the firehouse for a little while and interview a few of them and kind of just mull around for a while until a call comes in. And then they end up going out on this emergency about a woman who's been shouting in this apartment complex who needs help. And the local police have been informed, and the firefighters are going out there too. And everybody kind of pulls up, and it's a big crowd outside. They go into the building, and all the neighbors in the stairwell are awake and trying to figure out what's going on. And the cop that's already on the scene is like, why are these reporters here? And they have to explain how they have permission to tag along to see what's going on. And so he kind of tells them about, all right, look, you got to just follow my lead. And if I tell you to stop recording, you got to stop recording. And they follow him upstairs. They encounter the woman who's been screaming, who looks very disheveled. And I probably would not have approached, but as any zombie movie has to go, somebody's got to get too close at the wrong time. Just happens to be one of the cops who gets bitten. And from there, we have the usual sort of progression of zombie flick where people are trying to fight off those who are infected, subsequently getting bitten at some point, until we've just got the two reporters at the very end who have made their way up to the very top of the apartment complex to get out. And come to find out in sort of the culmination of the last scene sequence that we've got the added horror that has sort of started all of this that's waiting for them up there unbeknownst to them. Normally they would have tried to get out the front door, but at the same time that they've found out about this first issue with the old lady, they've started the cops that are outside, which are starting to accumulate more, have boarded up the entrance and are sort of quarantining off everywhere that you can get out of the building. So that's why they get trapped in there. They're trying to figure out how to get out and eventually work their way up to the top. Before we talk about the scene that I had in mind specifically for this, I would like to pivot back over to both of you and hear some more of your thoughts about what it was like watching this for the first time. And so May, I'm gonna, since you've got some thoughts to figure out or some questions to ask, perhaps, I'd like to hear what those are.
Yeah, I mean, it is mostly with that final scene. So my overall impressions is, one, like, wow, does this feel different when you're watching it after like 2 years of a global pandemic and a new like pandemic with monkeypox? Boy, does this feel different. So the overall just sense of anger, I guess, and not being filled in and not really knowing what was going on, is very relatable. That felt very raw and real. And it was interesting to see how you don't get a ton of background on any of the like supporting characters, or even on Angela, really. You kind of get a sense that she is a she's trying very hard to do her work as a reporter, but she also kind of like has some insecurities and like is trying to put on a fun, bubbly persona when she's just, terrified out of her mind. And everyone else also has kind of like unique reactions. One thing that took me off it a little bit is I couldn't get out of my head that the second cop, the one that takes longer to turn, just looks so much like Nathan Fielder. I don't know if that was just me, but I just kept expecting like a Nathan For You bit to start happening.
Nice.
But yeah, I do like that it doesn't like waste any time letting shit happen. And yeah, I feel like my pulse was racing the whole time. And I liked also that they really committed to the found footage bit in terms of putting the camera down at times, having like other people, like the little girl, like pick up the camera out of curiosity. And I liked those kind of like little added details, which they didn't have to do and definitely like were intentional in a film so short. But yeah, I liked it. I just, like I said, I have some questions about what we're supposed to learn from that little ending scene, which I'll reserve till we talk about that.
Excellent. All right, Chris, I'm sure you've got several zombie films under your belt, so give us your feedback on what you thought after watching Wreck.
Lots of zombie movies under my belt. Too many, some might say. I like the genre. Yeah. I mean, listen, like it's a genre that's been done to death. So it's like when there's like some kind of unique twist or like attempt to do something a little out of the ordinary, with whether it's like the zombies themselves or the structure. So it gets huge points for originality. Like it seems a little like blasé probably these days, like with how many found footage horror films have like come around since, and like there was a couple before this, but I thought one of the plus sides and I had read, I guess, that there was no sets built. This was all kind of like location shooting. It was a really effective use of the space, like in the apartment building. Really gave you that sense of claustrophobia, like all those stairwell shots where people are running up or down, and there's like, as it got more and more chaotic, like that stairwell became just a bigger and bigger hazard. Like I loved all that. I really didn't dig the dub too much that I got. I would have preferred subtitles personally, because I don't know, like I think it's really hard to pull off a good dub. So occasionally that did take me out of it, especially in the beginning parts, like when people are just kind of chit-chatting. Cared way less about that, like as the kind of movie progressed. But
right, it's like you're not watching people's mouths move at that point. There's too much blood.
It's a lot of screaming, right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the budget was for this, but special effects wise, I thought it was like pretty effective. And I really think that like the sense of dread and like tension, the kind of the build and the payoff at the end was really good. The other thing that I kind of loved was like how video gamey it was. Like this felt very much like, and then I saw that it inspired Outlast, which I've not played, but I've seen people play through all the way. And then like,
She's
even
handcuffed, so we can go up the stairs.
yeah. Well, like slamming like the little door is like very Resident Evil, like at
Yeah.
times. And like certainly like we'll talk about the finale, but there was like a tape recorder. I'm like, oh, here we go. Audio diaries. Perfect. So this is how you unlocked a collectible there, like that's what it kind of felt like. But I would say overall I enjoyed it. The weather cooperated here in Jacksonville. It was nice and rainy. There was like rain spattering against the window. I was all curled up in a blanket and it was super dark and I was by myself. So I think that kind of was bonus points thanks to Mother Nature. But
I agree with you on a lot of those points. Actually, both of you on the points that you brought up, especially the claustrophobia. Like that to me was one of my favorite parts about watching this film is that not so much, I mean, the camera is very shaky as well. So there's that going on. You got a lot of people that are, emotions, they're high. Everybody's really tense. There's a lot of screaming and shouting that happens. A lot of kind of spastic. We're running this way. We're going back this other way. But just the claustrophobia of walking down some of those apartments, you're not really sure what's around the corner and you feel like it's gonna, because there's gonna be some jump scares, like just not because it's a zombie film, but just because there's too many corners that you can't see around. Something is gonna pop out at some point. And so there's that. My wife was actually watching it with me for probably about 10 minutes and was just like, no, fuck this, I'm out. She was like, I feel my heart racing. Yeah, that was it. I was like, the movie's done well when you're just like, nope, I'm tapping out. And she tapped out when the fireman fell straight down. And I know this is going to be a spoiler, so I've already kind of ruined it. But fireman falls straight down the stairwell and splats on the ground and everybody wigs out and my wife was just like, no, I can't. So that little jump scare was also one of my favorite parts of the film, and also apparently was not known. I believe from what I read, the actors didn't know that was going to happen either. So sort of like in line with some of the other moments in movie history, like in Alien, where they didn't know the chest burster was going to happen to get sort of that more authentic feel. I think that in some ways this film tried a lot to be as realistic as it could be with respect to what it was trying to do. And so, you've got like the main character. So the actor who played Angela, or I guess, and I don't know how I would pronounce it correctly in Spanish, so I apologize, but Angela, for my pronunciation, portrayed by, I believe her name is Manuela Velasco.
Mm-hmm.
And she used to be, if I read correctly, she used to be a reporter. So to have somebody who knew what that was like, to make that authentic, to have a lot not really told to the cast members about what was going to happen at certain scenes, to get realistic reactions. The fact that we get really long takes from the camera angle throughout the film, and just the attention to detail with so much of it, and also just being on location. I mean, actually being in a real building versus trying to do it all on a set, I thought it was fantastic. Some of that realism too, I'd like to talk about as well in the final scene in that sequence and how it's set up, because even like the big reveal creature at the end is also, there's no CGI. It's a real person in prosthetics. And it's like, you guys are just really like, I don't know. I really appreciate this film for everything it tried to do. It's one of my favorite zombie films. I think that it's also worth it to you. One, I would agree, if you can, watch it with subtitles, don't get it dubbed. I'd also recommend, for comparison's sake, once you watch this one, to go and watch the American version Quarantine, just because it's interesting watching some of the differences that they made. It's not necessarily, I think I said last week, it was like a shot for shot remake. And in a lot of respects, it does try to be the same way pretty much throughout the entire film, even like the surprises and certain jump scares and the big reveal at the end is all very much like the same. But there's just certain like aesthetic differences, some dialogues a little bit different about certain parts that contribute to the film that I think are good. And without ruining anything for either the hosts of the show or for the people that are listening, I think it's worth it to go back and watch just to see, how they try to make it a bit different. If you decide that you really want to engage with Rec and you really want to engage with Quarantine, there are sequels to both. that's where they completely diverge. The sequel to Wreck, which we could talk a little bit more about after we talk about the last scene in this film. There's, I think, 4 movies total. So they did Wreck, Wreck 2. I want to say there's a Wreck Genesis in there somewhere, like a prequel, and then maybe another Wreck that's like, I don't know. I don't know if it's before or after the events of this film. I'll have to go back and check. And I haven't seen the 3rd or the 4th one, but I've seen the 2nd one. And then Quarantine does have a sequel that has no relation to Wreck after that. It's very much its own American version idea of spinoff. So, and it was okay. Not really anything I'd be like, yeah, go out and see because it's amazing. But it's not terrible. It's just kind of like, okay, I see where you try to go with it. So, but yeah. All right. Well, before we jump into the scene, any other thoughts or things that stood out to you about this?
I just want to let you both know that if you ever had children, I would not hesitate to bash their brains in if they were a zombie. Like that always frustrates me so
Chris!
bad, dude. Like
She's just got tonsillitis, Chris.
Oh man,
Jesus
no,
Christ.
but like when she's going batshit and they're like, oh, it's a kid. I'm like, nah, like, it's going down, dude. Like I love both of you, but if your little kid's a zombie and it's coming out, like it's getting his face bashed in. I'm sorry. Like it's like one of the tropes that always like annoy, especially like that late in the sequence of stuff where you've clearly seen like that this thing is like spreading and people are like dangerous. Like you don't have to be the one to do it as like the parent, but
get the cop with the gun. He'll make it fast.
Yeah, or the dude with the sledgehammer,
Oh God.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if we're talking about like small pet peeves, I knew Manu was going to make it like almost to the end just because they named him. He repeated his name several times.
Yep.
Gave it a little bit away.
Please make it out a little bit longer. Yeah, it's true. I do think it's funny, like you watch at certain points and you're like, yeah, they're definitely setting it up for somebody to get it. Like when and I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but the want to say it was the like this. Oh my gosh, the guy with the little. I wish I could remember his name. It's so
the
bad.
ascot. The guy with the ascot?
Yes, him.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yeah,
a
well,
British
when he
accent,
like
I'm pretty
very
sure.
purposefully like switches places with Manu while they're talking.
Yeah, like he's like very intentionally bracing himself up against the door they have just had locked because one of the guys that came in, one of the biohazard guys who's been like trying to test for what's been happening to these people who comes into the building. He's like the only guy from the outside who makes it in once they've all been quarantined. Once he gets infected and he locks himself up in this side corridor in this apartment. And then, yeah, and Dude Man is just like talking about, oh, this is how we can get out. Listen to me. And then he's like, and then strategically bracing himself up against the door that's just been locked. I'm like, oh, you're not gonna make it. He's gonna get grabbed. Like, get the fuck out of there, man. But nope. No, we got to keep it going. So, but yeah, that or like the kid. Oh my goodness, you knew something was going to happen with the kid, and you're just waiting for it. And that little jump scare too. I was like, this is great. It was awesome. That one I actually liked. Yeah.
Night of the Living Dead. Reminds me
Yes.
of. I think is her name Karen, the little girl. Anyway, like yeah, they're like.
Aw.
Did we
very
ever
similar.
see, and I'm also blanking on this woman's name. I don't know if she actually was named, but the woman who is talking about her elderly father being up in the bedroom. Did anything ever happen with him, or was that just kind of a thread left untouched?
I think in this one it is. I don't know if so the sequel to this movie takes place pretty much right after the first one. Like the sequel has like the perspective of a SWAT team that goes in afterwards to try and deal with this mess. It's like
Oh.
cleanup. And so I think that the old man shows up. I think there's certain characters that are related that show up. So like the I want to say it was, I don't know if her character had a name, but it was Jennifer's the little girl. So her mother, or I should say her father, who we don't see because he was outside the building, shows up in the sequel trying to get into the building. So certain characters you see, the character like that were alluded to, show up after the fact. I don't remember. I'll have to look it up, but I don't remember if the Chinese families, if the grandfather was okay or not. I mean, not
Yeah.
necessarily okay,
Because
but
I
like
was
around.
expecting Kim to jump up when they're on the 5th floor and searching for the
Yeah.
key. Because I thought that they lived up on the 5th floor, and it's like, oh, this is
Mhm.
definitely when he's going to jump out. And then no, okay.
Yeah. And then and this will tie into the last scene too, which I guess we can go ahead and just jump into, which is that there's a little kid. There's like up in the attic. And you're like, what the fuck was that? And you see it for like 1 second.
Yeah.
Because he like spook jumps and knocks the camera out of, I think it's Alex, knocks the camera out of Alex's hands or pushes it, scares him, he falls, the camera, the light on the camera breaks. And so he has to use the night vision on the camera in order to see. But to sort of backtrack to what Chris was mentioning too, prior to this, in the final sequence of the film, they end up in this supposedly abandoned apartment that has a bunch of like vials. It's sort of like the I guess the stereotypical like laboratory look, and you find some like sort of that hospital type of like chair set up in another room. And so you're thinking, okay, so some stuff went down up here nobody needed to know about, I guess. And we come to learn through some some tape, some recordings, that there had been a girl that had supposedly had been possessed, that there had been some demonic possession that had happened to her, and that she was under observation and being tested to see how it was, like what had caused it. And the person who's making the recording is talking about how they've isolated the enzyme that's reacting to cause this, and then it turns out that he's like, no, we have to terminate the subject. And so at some point attempted to do that and it didn't work, and which then caused this somehow, and in the course of this film it doesn't really go into it, they try to connect the dots a little bit more in the second one, but at some point that little girl has infected something else that infects a dog that one of the that Jennifer, the little girl, has, that then infects her and then goes around infecting, I guess presumably the older lady that's in the apartment. And how everything sort of spreads from there. When they try to find their way out, they find out that there's this attic crawl space that they think they can get out of. And Alex goes up there and he's shining his camera around. It's when the kid pops out, spooks him, he falls back. And then once they get up and he uses the night vision to kind of see what's going around, he hears something else. And then you see this really creepy just reveal of the very thin, I guess decaying body of the girl that had been originally possessed, presumably, who is shuffling around with a hammer and trying to find the source of the noise that she had heard, which was them. And then that whole struggle that happens when they try to get out, which culminates in both Alex and Angela not making it out. Alex, who gets bludgeoned to death, and then Angela, who gets grabbed and pulled off screen in the last little sort of jumpy into the film for the footage. So with that recap, I guess, May, now it's time for the questions that you've got, that you were like, well, okay, so you got a lot of thoughts. We gotta throw them out there.
So like it is a bold move to drop a ton of extra exposition in your last 10 minutes of your film. Like I gotta respect the boldness of doing that. But yeah, it seemed really out of left field to say like, oh no, you thought this was zombies, it's actually demonic possession. And like I do like the fact that it does invite you to then go back through the film and kind of like really study and look for clues. Like I think the only hint you really get of that is there's like some early comment made about the guy that like owns that 5th floor apartment, like almost never coming there or staying there, and always keeping it locked, and like, you know, being someone who travels a lot, I guess to the Vatican or
No.
or wherever,
science conventions, you know.
I don't know, but yeah, it seemed like an extra thing just kind of thrown in for shock value to me a bit. It was very, very well done, but yeah, I don't know, it didn't quite sit right with me. And then yeah, that scene where the cameraman, also I think the cameraman's Pablo, not Alex. I thought Alex was
I've been getting it
a
wrong.
different character.
No. I got my cast list is up. See, it's a good thing you're here to fact check me on that. I apologize to everyone listening. I have gotten characters wrong in this. I'm usually
It's
better
okay.
about this. I apologize.
Most of this movie is screaming and yelling like
Right.
over one another, so it's not like we get a lot of like quiet character moments where the names are thrown out. So I think you're fine.
I think I'm
Yeah.
confusing Pablo with, and so I guess Alex, just for clarification's sake, I think maybe Alex was like the medical tech that they had who was like trying to figure out what was going on with them. But yeah, so that might have been it. So yeah, all right. So anyway, Pablo, I've been
Yeah.
correct, and I will say that correctly now. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I just like that's like one of the only names I remembered. It was like I think it was Pablo, but just because Angela's shouting his name so much.
Yeah, no, you're good.
But yeah, no, when he sticks the camera up through that like little attic place and the kid punches the light, like that's genuinely terrifying because you realize, oh, we have lost our own source of light. But I'm also wondering like where did that kid come from? And like I've been trying to think about that, figure that out. So I'm curious to like hear if you guys have theories. And that's my main question, is just like what are your theories around this ending? That's kind of cryptic, genuinely horrifying. I'll give it that, but very cryptic. Is like, did she have that kid? Like, is that her kid? Like, maybe because I mean, it's hard to tell because she's very deformed, but it seems like she is a young woman at that point. Not a little girl anymore. And yeah, I'm just like really wondering what the like operation the guy on the tapes was talking about. If it failed and he was like eaten by her, or if he just kind of left her there to see if it would work or not and didn't realize that things were spreading. I wonder how it spread to the rest of the apartment, if it was that little boy that did it. I just like, it's an ending that leaves you with a ton of questions, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, I have a lot of questions. I do really appreciate the commitment, like you described, to not using CGI, to like having like prosthetics and an actually like completely pitch black room. There is, to me, like nothing more terrifying than looking down a very dimly lit hallway and seeing just the suggestion of a distant, vaguely humanoid figure. Like that, I think that's probably the scariest single scene for me. Was that, and because it's like when that thing comes within like easy viewing distance, you don't know if it's going to be an actual person or a monster or another zombie or what. So just the vague and kind of like menacing figure in the distance was very scary.
It's not going to be anything good, is it? Like,
no. Because at that point, they're not even really trusting the people from outside, because like that's kind of a repeated refrain from a lot of people, is just feeling like totally abandoned by the people that put them into quarantine, which is understandable. So yeah, they're very much on their own at that point. And yeah, no, the ending's just very sad between Angela and Pablo, because you don't know anything about their relationship, but clearly they are the only two people that like can trust one another at that point. I do love that it ended with the scene of Angela getting dragged away. That felt very much like just a general homage to horror.
Yeah, done many times since too. Like I feel like that's been aped by a lot of like I think it's out in the box art of Quarantine. I saw it's literally the shot of Jennifer Carpenter being dragged away. But like I feel like Paranormal Activity, which I'm not sure if it came before or after that, but I feel like after has like a very famous sequence of somebody being dragged away like into the shadows like that.
And my last comment on the final scene is, I also really appreciate that you only see this kind of like demonic possessed figure through the night vision lens. You never see them in any kind of actual light, because I think that really preserves the horror of the moments. Chris, I'll like try to send you a link for your edits later. But I watched a really great video essay recently on like why like cosmic horror in particular is really, really hard to do in a visual media, just because as soon as you've like visually named or described the thing, it does lose some of its like ethereal like cosmicness, I guess. And I felt like this creature, in part because it's still very vague like what it is even by the end of the movie, but also just because you never actually really fully see it, it does like preserve a lot of the unique horror and confusion around it, and it's kind of like uncanniness.
It's a good point. Yeah, I feel like in a lot of the really good horror films that are out there, it's the fact that you don't know entirely what it is that you're looking at that is the scariest part. So like Alien is another good example to go back to, a classic horror where you didn't really see much of it. And that was part of what was really driving home a lot of the, the apprehension and the suspense and the scariness of the fact that you don't really know where it's coming from and you don't really know what it's going to do. I mean, you've seen some of what it does, but you're not really sure like how you're going to get away from it. And I think to a large extent, Jaws was like that too. I mean, perhaps unintentionally for the fact that they had animatronic issues with the shark, but still just the fact that it was like, you want to scare some people out of never going in the water again, and this is a great way to do it. So, I mean, stuff like that where, yeah, it's a lot of what you don't see and the power that can have about, letting your mind create or I guess run away from you about what it is that's going on. And so, yeah, I agree. I think it was good to sort of try and fill in the gaps a little bit to give some closure to that storyline, but still leave some threads open. Just because it wasn't really necessary in the end. You didn't have to tie up everything, but to a certain extent, you kind of left a little bit there to wonder about. So, all right, Chris, what are your thoughts of the final scene?
Yeah, this was the standout for me. I can see why you picked it. I thought it was incredibly effective. I agree wholeheartedly with May. I think less would have been more. I think just the mere suggestion of like the laboratory and that maybe this like tenant on the in the attic had something to do with the infection without trying to like contextualize or explain it would have been just as effective for me, honestly, maybe more. So but yeah, like when the night vision sequence basically starts, I really felt bad for Angela. Like, it's easy to forget in that moment that she can't see like what we're seeing. Like it's just Pablo. Man, how horrible would that be to just have to clutch onto somebody and hope to fucking God they know what they're talking about and doing. And then to try not to breathe or make noise as this giant thing is kind of stalking around. Probably better for her in that moment that she can't see it.
Yeah.
I did look this up because I was curious. So Tristana is the name of like the young woman, and it's played by a gentleman actually by the name of Javier Botet, who is 6'7", so an inch taller than Michael Jordan. If you want to like for I guess context, like that's I think helps kind of with the physical imposition and like just the weird like quality of that creature. But yeah, I didn't really know what to make with the kid to answer that question. I think it was more for shock value. The more you try to think about it and unpack that, like probably the more it falls apart, at least like just with just this movie as like your point of reference. But yeah, I think I mean this was a really, really cool, effective sequence. I thought it was a strong end to the film. It left a lasting impression. Certainly there's a lot of good dread, and I think really in general, even though like there's like some blood and gore in this movie, like this is a pretty prime example of like you can get immense terror out of either off-screen violence or like violence with like some restraint for sure. And it's more about the suspense. The suspenseful scenes are often more for me anyway, like effective than the ones in which they're like, say, like the surprise bites and things like that. Like they give you the jump, but like not quite the dread that you get of like watching these two characters try to hold their breath and be quiet as this big lumbering thing is like slinking around. So I loved it. Stand out for me really for the whole entire film.
I agree. In fact, it was my favorite scene of this because of the fact that it was so terrifying to be just the idea of seeing something. And it, truthfully, the first time I saw it, I thought it was CGI to some degree. I think I actually watched Quarantine first, and then I went back and watched this one. And Quarantine, one of the subtle differences that they do is it's a lot darker in terms of the lighting of the apartment complex than it is in this one. Like in certain shots, they have light strategically placed so that you can see some of the characters a little bit better, despite the fact that there's so much shaky cam going on that it's like, I mean, when you do see somebody for a second, there's only so much detail. But in Quarantine, I felt like everything just had a little bit of a darker lighting. Sometimes people were like zombies were a little bit more obscured. But at the very end, man, when I saw that and just that creepy, it's sort of, I guess it's like the Slender Man sort of like scare where it's something that's just like sort of humanoid, but not really. So yeah, and definitely a big shout out to Javier Botet. Did a phenomenal job and has done several other jobs as playing sort of supernatural characters in film. Because of the fact of the way that his body is with, I think it's Marfan syndrome, where it's his limbs are very long and very thin, similar to another actor who's on Star Trek Discovery, actually, who it's the same sort of body build. And so to
Doug
be able
Jones.
to play, yeah, and I think he was actually in Hellboy. So yeah, just stuff like that where it's really cool, just sort of like the characters that you get to embody in that realm without having to worry about any sort of like, I mean, it's just prosthetics that they've got, and so it's incredible work. But yeah, no, that to me was like the scariest part of the film. The little kid, I think, is explained as being I think there was like something either in a sequel movie. They even had like a book or like a comic or something that came out, I think, that tried to fill in some of these gaps. Don't quote me on the comic, but I think there was some sort of literature that came out as well. But I think in a subsequent movie, part of it, they tried to explain that the kids were being like collected to be tested on in there, and he was just one of them.
Fucking
Oh
Catholic
God,
Church,
that's
man.
even worse.
I know. So it's
Oh
just like,
no.
right. But the demonic possession thing to me really stood out because in Quarantine, in the American version, there's no demonic possession, and it's all strictly, it's much more zombie. It's much more science based in the sense of like they got a contagion, it transformed them into this is what it's doing. That sense of it versus the supernatural demonic possession. But I think it's interesting because that sort of, I feel like in the horror that we create in our culture in terms of what we're afraid of, I think it's interesting to look at how that's portrayed in both of these films, because there's some things that are pretty consistent and there's other things that aren't. So like for us, we're like you pointed out, May, I mean, this film has aged in an interesting way with our current times of now. It's like, they even make a comment, or the recording made a comment about like, this is very much like the flu. And I'm like, yep. Excellent. So it's the fear of this biological contagion that's going to happen. And so it's like, we in America, we are very much afraid of certain things in science going run amok, in terms of like if it's a virus. I thought that was really fascinating to have the idea that it would be a supernatural source. So it's demonic possessions. And, with the idea that for Catholics, the movie The Exorcist was absolutely terrifying. Not saying that it's not terrifying to people that aren't Catholic, but I just remember talking to a friend of mine who is Catholic back in probably high school about that film. And she was like, no, I can't. The idea is too terrifying. And to me, I didn't really understand that as much. But to me, demonic possession is not something that I believe in. And so to have that be something that you do believe in, I thought, yeah, I could completely understand how that would be a terrifying aspect, to feel like that's the evil that's coming after you. I will say one of the things that does connect the two films that is worth mentioning is there is racism in the film, and there is the idea of the other of people that they thought were the reason for what was happening. Because there's a Chinese family in this version. I can't remember if there's a Chinese family or they might have been Hispanic in Quarantine. So don't quote me on that, but I just remember that was the other thing. Was it was like there's this one family that's different to somebody in some character who feels like they're the source of the problem, and it's not that case, obviously. But to have that be another fear that's brought up as part of this, as everybody's trying to figure out what's going on and what the situation is. So I think in some ways, like a good horror film, it shows us what it is that we're afraid of and what other people are afraid of. And I think that had a very powerful message for us to look at now.
Yeah, especially in light of unfortunately, the racism that we've seen towards Chinese people after COVID.
Mhm.
From
Mhm.
our own former president, no less, calling it the China virus, right? Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
rather
So,
embarrassing.
yeah, for real. So, I think that's part of what makes it such a powerful film, is that, it is very much something that you can go back and relate to later, and, for better or worse in some ways with that.
I was just gonna say your comments on the kind of like demonic angle reminded me that like I feel like the film is also kind of like leaving that interpretation a bit open, because it's the only character who you learn that from is this guy that is clearly deeply Catholic and embedded in the church, who has decided that this girl is demonically possessed. Whereas, like, hey, maybe it's a product of all of the laboratory experimentation they've been doing on her, for instance. Like, that's
Mhm.
I don't know. I feel like the film doesn't firmly say like, ah, yes, it is 100% demons. That's obviously this guy's interpretation and then why he's gone to these lengths to like lock this girl up and experiment on her. But who knows?
Watch the second one, and they will hammer that point in pretty hard.
Okay, well, never mind.
No, you're good. I actually like the fact that the first one does keep it ambiguous, because you're right. Like this could just be, this is their interpretation of it. I One of the few things I remember from the sequel, and I remember it because I think I was actually caught off guard with the fact that they doubled down on it so hard, was that they have these, I guess, like SWAT guys go into the building, and each of them has a camera, so you get different angles as they're going through. And at some point, I'm pretty sure somebody straight up uses some holy water and it burns one of them. And so I was like, all right, you
Epic.
really wanted to do the demonic possession thing. All right, but you're right. The first one doesn't really confirm that. It just leaves it as an idea. And you're right that it's open to interpretation, which also in a lot of ways makes it good, because it doesn't, sort of like what you were saying before about how once you know what it is that's coming at you, sort
Right.
of some of that magic is gone. So yeah, leave it open a little bit. Don't completely, confirm or deny. So yeah.
I was not interested in any of the sequels until I saw the poster art for Rec 4 Apocalypse, which has Angela coming back. She is in a bloody tank top against the backdrop of a angry sea with a dark, stormy sky behind her, holding what looks like a bloody boat propeller, looking like she's gonna fuck some shit up. And I'm like, man, how far we've come from whatever happens between this one and that one. But I really want to know what happens now. So
Basically, it's become Resident Evil, is what I'm hearing out of this.
I might have a guilty pleasure to discuss in a couple of episodes. Who knows?
We expect you to update us accordingly.
Yeah, I might do it. You never know.
Well, I don't know where it's going after it's done on AMC Plus, but Rec and Rec 2 are currently on there. I don't think the third or the fourth one are. I think Rec 3 Genesis, which apparently takes place roughly around the same time as the first two films. I'm not sure where that's at. And I think you said Rec 4 Apocalypsis is the one that finishes it off. So, but I feel like at some point I feel like they have to explain where it came from, because I was reading somewhere about how there's like, it talks about how the little girl got infected or how the dog got infected. So anyway, or both. So yeah. Maybe don't watch that one for if the dog makes it out. I mean, well, I guess technically it does have to make it out to a certain point and then it gets put down, but I don't know how much they're going to show with that. So.
Yeah, the dog did die well.
Yeah. But off screen, they just mentioned it. They put it to sleep, which I don't know. If you have a dog that gets a little berserk as a zombie, when they say they put it to sleep, I kind of wonder.
That is a strong euphemism in that moment. Yeah. I'm feeling.
Took it to the farm.
Yeah.
Aw.
Man. As long as they didn't get like the Manu treatment of the freaking, like, what did he pick up where he just like punched that one lady and it was the sledgehammer, right?
Yeah.
Jeez, man. I mean, he wasn't kidding around. And like snapping necks too. I thought it was like, man, they make that look a little too easy. But anyway.
Well, before we transition away from Rec, I did look up the budget to kind of bring that back for, and I'm the one with the power now. So
I didn't
Over,
even
under?
look.
I will tell. So I'll throw out the number, and you guys can tell me. Uh, it's exactly right. Higher or lower. So, Rec had a budget of $5 million.
Lower.
I'm gonna go right at.
It's $2 million. So,
Oh,
yeah. Nice
noise.
job, May.
Get
I
it?
promise I didn't look. I feel like most of the money went to the like prosthetics and like blood effects, and nothing else really cost anything. Probably renting out that building for the
I
day.
was gonna say location shooting for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Borrowing a fire truck,
that's true. That's true.
photographing, like, I don't know. Do you wonder if those I think I read those firefighters, except for the ones that went into the building, were all real, like real firefighters. So I kind of wonder if they got like a nice little, like, hey, be in our movie, or if it's more just like, we can't because of rules. We can't
Aw.
pay you. Or what, I don't know what it would be like to do that. I don't even know what it would be like over here. I'm assuming they would want to get paid, but I don't know.
It one last little thing that I forgot to mention. There's a documentary about 9/11 that would have come out, I think, before, because it was like the year anniversary of 9/11 that it aired first. It's just called 9/11. That this was very reminiscent of, like, especially in the beginning, and it's about two French brothers that are following a rookie firefighter, like in his like basically first months of being a firefighter, and like, you know, developing that camaraderie with the group, and they happen to be there, like his first call is like the airplane crash at the Twin Towers. It's like the only footage from inside the Twin Towers. Like they're inside at one point when the building collapses. It's wild, harrowing, it's sad, it's crazy, but it's like some of the most fascinating, I mean, like just unbelievable stuff. But like watching the firefighters kind of like play basketball and like goof off, like it was very reminiscent. So I wonder if that was an influence like on that, because it was a really famous documentary like when it came out. So ready for a little game? We ready for
yeah, let's do
I'm
it,
very
man. What
ready.
you got?
all right, so we're gonna bring back some keyword countdown, which as we've mentioned before, was created by Gav Murphy of RKG Video. Just one of the funniest and brightest spots on the internet. That channel's amazing. I spoke of watching somebody play through Outlast. They have a horror like series called Spookies, where they play scary games together in the dark, and they did Outlast. So that's why I've seen Outlast. So you should check that out if you want more of the same of what you got in Rec. So for maybe our new listeners, the way keyword countdown works is I have 5 films. I have accumulated 10 clues apiece from IMDb's plot keyword page for these films, and I'm going to list them off one at a time. They're going to start off very obscure, and then as we move through, they'll get more and more obvious, with the final clue being a dead giveaway, as one of my colleagues, eventually guesses the film right, because you guys are going to get all these, like, absolutely. They will get points for basically how far down the list they got. So for the clue and any remaining clues, they'll receive a point. So if they guess it on clue number 5, they would get 6 points total for that particular movie. So let's go, shall we? Film number 1, clue number 1. This is one of my favorites. Lifting someone into the air.
Dirty Dancing.
Great guess.
Beat me to it.
But no, it's not that.
White Christmas?
Not a bad guess, but nope. Clue number 2 is going to, I think, switch some mental gears here. Revenge is your second clue.
Predator.
Star Wars.
It's not Predator or Star Wars. Both of those would work though. But nope.
Okay.
Clue number 3, female protagonist. Couple more seconds.
Kill Bill.
Nope. Good guess though.
Better not be Terminator.
I would do that too. But also would work, I think, in all of those, really. Next clue is small town. small town.
The Crucible.
Not a bad guess, but nope.
Hmm.
All righty. Next clue. Video store. Video store. Remember those? We used to go there.
Blockbuster.
R.I.P.
Yeah, seriously.
All right.
Jeez.
Next clue. This is your sixth clue. One word title. One word title. Nope. All right. Next clue. First of a series.
I wish you could see my face right now, Chris.
I'm going to summarize here, and then I'm going to culminate with the next clue. Lifting someone into the air. Revenge.
Yep.
Female protagonist. Small town. Video store. One word title. All right. First of a series. Sorry, I realized like I didn't go down to the next clue. And then finally, phone is your next clue. Oh, that's a biggie.
I'm drawing a blank.
All right. Certainly somebody I think is going to get it here. Penultimate clue. Masked killer. Masked killer.
Oh, Scream.
It is. It's Scream.
Nice.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, jeez.
I know it's
Man.
so obvious when you hear like when you get down, you're like, oh, of course. So that is 2 points for Will. Your final clue was Ghostface.
Yeah,
So
that
lifting
one.
someone into the air, revenge, female protagonist, small town, video store, one word title, first of a series, phone, mask killer, and Ghostface.
Wow.
Well done, Will.
Thanks, man.
All right. Here we are. New film, new set of clues. Clue number
Let's go.
1. Reference to Alexander the Great.
Okay.
I want it to be Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but I know it's not that.
That'd be great, but it's not.
Just thinking about all the other characters in history that got referenced to that. But yeah, I wish. But anyway, I digress.
All right. Clue number 2, industrialist.
There will be blood. No.
Sure, but no.
Metropolis.
It's not. All right. Appropriate for this week's film. View through a video camera. View through a video camera. Yep, all right. Next clue, secret project. Secret project. All right. Next clue, cave.
Oh, jeez.
Ellie knows.
She does.
What is it, Ellie?
She's screaming
one
at the
is
top of her lungs. She's like, hey, I know. Come on, you idiot. No. No. All right. Next clue, character name as title. Character name as title.
I'm really struggling with these. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's all right. They're
Likewise.
meant to be kind of hard until you get down to the, the back half.
Yeah.
This next one is bound to be a big clue. So, surprise during end credits.
Iron Man.
It is. It is
Ah,
Iron Man.
Oh my
noise.
God.
Get it.
Nice job.
Get it.
I was just
4
trying to think of
points.
an industrialist Marvel movie because they always have
Yeah.
end credit surprise.
Yep.
Yeah.
You did
Nice.
it. Your final clues would have been billionaire,
Mhm.
high
Yeah.
tech, and armor.
Yeah.
Great job.
Nice.
All right, no pressure. I'm looking at this list because I played this with my team at work, and somebody got it on this clue. Actually, the first clue I think you'd have
Nice.
to be a mega fan of this movie and just be vibing in the right way. But here we are. Next film. First clue: children's choir.
Hmm.
Something. I feel like there's something there. uh, Home Alone.
Not a bad guess, but no.
I can't remember if that's actually in this film. I could be misremembering the scene, but Moonrise Kingdom.
I'm not sure if that is either, but it's not the one. I was just talking about that last night with Marianne, how I need to give it another shot. I thought it was incredibly not my thing the first time I saw it.
Aw.
I love Grand Budapest, but that one didn't do it for me. All right, next clue. Returning character with a different actor. All right.
I know it's not going to be right, but Back to the Future Part 2.
Not a bad guess, but no, that is not it.
Yeah.
Crispin Glover famously replaced and successfully sued, I think, for his likeness being used. One of the reasons.
Yeah,
that,
Crispin Glover was gone, and then Elizabeth Shue came in too to replace. Oh, geez, I can't remember her name either. I am terrible with names tonight.
No, I know it's not I think like a super well-known one though, to be fair. But yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I can't remember it either.
Yeah.
All right, next clue: unlawful arrest. Unlawful arrest.
Oh.
Alrighty. Next clue: body inflation. Body inflation.
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
That's a great it would be a great guess, honestly, with returning character as a different actor. That fits, but it's not it. That's not the one. But a lovely guess. Here's your next clue: triple decker bus.
Harry Potter. And the Prisoner of Azkaban.
That's the one.
Nice.
So that is 7 points for May. Well done. Your remaining
Excellent.
clues were and I'm sorry, 6 points. Your remaining clues were time travel, flying creature, werewolf, wizard, scar on a forehead.
The last one
Nice.
there is
That's a little bit of a gimme.
yeah.
So that is 10 points for May, to Will's 2. So Will, you can still do it, my guy. We have 2 more films. It is anyone's game. Here we go. Clue number 1, based on a novel, which really narrows it down if you think about it.
Pride and Prejudice. Final
Blade
answer.
It is neither.
David Lynch's Dune.
Nope. Your next clue.
Denis Villeneuve's Dune.
Yeah. Fearless Child. Fearless Child.
Matilda.
Nope, not the one. Good one though. Good banger of a movie. All right, next clue: film footage. Film footage.
Jurassic Park. No.
Super 8.
Nope, not the one.
That's a pretty good guess.
I don't know if it's based on a book or not, but
All right, your next clue: Savannah, Georgia. All right. Next clue: famous line. Famous line. All right. Next clue: Vietnam War.
Forrest Gump.
It is. Wow, May is
nice.
on all. So I think gluten might actually provide you with like superpowers. So So
I think you're just picking films I know at this point.
not, I mean, certainly not on purpose. Again, like this was in full like disclosure mode, was made for my work team. So
Nice.
we do a happy hour once a month and we'll like talk about anything but work, and they've come to like keyword countdown, so I make a game for them. So
That's a
very
great
nice.
idea.
Your remaining clues would have been ping pong, shrimp boat,
Mm,
telling somebody to run, chocolate.
telling somebody to
Amazing.
run.
All right. So by my reckoning, that is 11. That's 15 points. Will, I'm sorry to say, even with 10 points, you are out of the running, but you could still make it interesting. You can close the gap. So here is our final film. All right. Clue number 1, told in a flashback.
Titanic.
Oh my fucking god! It is.
Oh,
It is.
damn. Bow, bow,
It
bow,
is. Oh my goodness!
I was like, there's
That's
no
10
way.
points.
Champion
Wow.
of the
Yeah,
keyword
that is. I'm gonna have to put some
countdown.
kind of special graphic on the
Yeah.
on the episode when I do the video edit. It is Titanic. Holy shit!
That's the only one I know that would fit in that category too. So I got lucky.
Mm,
Wow! Excellent
Nice.
job.
yeah,
The
for
final
real,
clues were historical event, race against time, face slap, one word title, gambling, fire axe, dancing, diamond necklace, and then sinking ship. That's
Yeah.
always the giveaway clue at the end. Wow,
man.
great
Nice.
job.
Well played, Rotondi.
It's all right. Hey, look, I got my 2 on the board. I'm happy. It's all good.
He's like,
man.
at least it wasn't a shutout.
Yep.
No, that's a great. I mean, hey, listen, like that's the thing about keyword countdown is like, sometimes it's not even like have I seen the movie or not, or how well do I know it. It's just like those word associations sometimes like form a straight path in your brain to exactly what it is as somebody who's played this, and then other times you're like, I haven't got a single solitary clue what this is, so that is okay. But well done. Well, let's draw our next film and skedaddle, shall we?
Yay.
All right. I'm gonna give this a really good shuffle and then have my cheat sheet ready so I can see what we have. Ooh, it is another Who is the Real Villain? And let's see whose nomination this is.
Those are always fun.
All right. Will, this will be your final pick in a row since you've gotten 3. It seems like they're coming in 3s lately.
They are.
Which that's how it goes. And it is your selection of Crimson Tide. So I'm very excited because I've never seen this actually. This is another first time watch. I know this got James Gandolfini in it and Gene Hackman, of course, and Denzel, right? Like
I don't know about Gandolfini, but I definitely true for Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington, and I want to say Viggo Mortensen.
Really
I wanna
nice.
say, yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Like I'm very excited. It's a submarine thriller, right? Like action thriller kind of thing. Yeah.
I will watch any movie with Viggo, so I'm hyped.
Oh, amazing. I mean, big same, honestly. He's since gotten like the recognition he deserves, but he was in a lot of really cool, interesting things, kind of flew under the radar. Even before Lord of the Rings, and just continued to do interesting work.
Yeah. And you are correct about James Gandolfini. I couldn't remember who he was in the film, but I see him showing up there. So yeah.
The only reason I know is like every time this film comes up, because my stepdad, Joe, who's an amazing guy, like spent his entire Navy career basically on submarines. Every time this movie comes up, they talk about the fact that it's wild to see like pre-Sopranos, like James Gandolfini, like in it, and I think he's a very different type of character in this. It's probably gonna make me a little sad because anytime I see him, I get a little sad. But he's such a massive talent lost, unfortunately, way too early. But I'm really much looking forward to this, man.
You're also going to have a little, I don't know which character he is in it from memory, but and if I pronounce his name wrong, I apologize. George, is it Zunza, who was in The Deer Hunter, who played What was
Oh.
his name? He was the guy they left behind. He was taking a leak. He was John, I think.
Wow, no, yeah, I don't.
It's just I'm scrolling through. Hey, look, I threw Pablo under the bus, so I am like I'm gonna memorize some names next time. So
You'll have a whole like cast list committed to memory.
I'd be like, I know everyone. Special shout out to Pablo Rosso, who played Pablo in Rec. I am very sorry. Respect for your awesome job as the cameraman. So
I also said before we skedaddle or saw rather that our tall lanky actor from Rec, Javier Botet, was on Star Trek Discovery and coincidentally played the title character in Slender Man as well. So
Oh wow.
lots of weird ways the universe lined up for us today.
Yep.
That about does it. I can't wait to have yet another new movie. This is like the good stuff. Like I love when I draw like a card for something I haven't seen, because it's like it eliminates some of that anxiety of like doom scrolling through Netflix and Prime and be like, oh, what are we gonna watch next?
Exactly.
I have something I can kind of just target and enjoy. So we thank you all for joining me, and audience, thank you for hanging in yet again for another week's episode. We hope you're enjoying the show. Please engage with us on social media at ScreenQuest Pod on Twitter, and of course let us know what did you make of Rec. Did you watch it? Did you like it? Were you scared? Did you think that the dub was bad? I hope so, because it was pretty bad. But until next time, we love you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.